BPro fanatics, BPro nerds, cryptilians, and crypto crackheads. Today is Monday, August 30th, 2021. Turn it up to ×2 playback speed because you're about to get Timified. Before I start the video, for those of you, especially BPro nerds, who are not part of this community, go ahead and check out the links that I provided in the description section. If I can speak English correctly, I've essentially walked you through what it would be like to join the community, especially a very BPro-driven community. A lot of traders in there as well, a lot of folks who are altcoin-specific traders. However, I'm trying to show you for each tier what it would be like to join, so go ahead and check that down below. And since it's close to the first of the month, now's the perfect time to go check that out and explore if that would be worth your time and investment. So let's get into the BPro analysis. What I have pulled up here is BPro price without the price. What does that even mean, Tim? What does that mean? Well, that means that we are looking at a couple of EMAs, and when they cross, generally bad. When they have red above yellow, generally good. So the red line is the daily 10 EMA. So it's an exponential moving average, or just an average of the closing price over the last 10 days with a small amount of favoritism towards the most recent days. When they cross down, it's bad. Down means red goes below yellow. However, red going below yellow can have a fake out, kind of like it did here. It's essentially a moment of consolidation before a blast off. But statistically, especially after a large run, when these start to converge on each other, that anticipates a larger move down. So, was this a large run? Ask yourself that question and answer it. No, it wasn't. So, when they converged, it was a consolidation. Was this a large run? Right here? No, not really. Was it bigger than this one? Yes. So you had a big drop after that. Let's put price back on. 70% drop. So this was essentially a choppy sideways market right here. So there's not a lot you could do. You get a lot of signals no matter what type of time frame that you're on. This was a hard market to trade, just like Bitcoin was most recently between 40K down to 20, let's say down to 30K. Very, very choppy market, hard to read the charts. So a lot of these crosses, it's just because the market was choppy. I'm not going to go back in time to all of these, even though if I did, it would favor towards the downside, which is kind of what I'm trying to warn against in this video. But I want to be totally fair and not use this choppy section within my analysis. So what we're left with is the smaller the run, the less likely of a chance as these converge that they cross. The larger the run, the more likely the chance that they cross and stay crossed for a long time. And this is very few data points, right? So let's say we took a simulation of these scenarios and played it out 1 million times. It's totally possible the first 100 times have a 78% likelihood that the bigger the run, past a certain point, past a certain size of run, that it's going to break down. However, once you get closer to 1 million, as you get past the first 100 or 200 examples or scenarios, that it plays out to be 50-50. So for example, if you did a simulation, the first 100 times it says, hey, this is almost definitely going to tank. However, after you do 10,000 simulations, you realize, wait, nope, it's a 1-for-1, or it's a 50% chance as of now after doing 10,000 simulations, right? So I want to be very frank. The sample size of this is very, very small. This isn't very statistically significant. However, we're simply using the data that we have right now to interpret what our chances are to trade the correct way. So every time that you look at a chart, you have to admit to yourself, it could go up, it could go down, or it could go sideways. I know that sounds retarded, but it's true. That's literally what you should be thinking as a core. You shouldn't necessarily bring that to the forefront of your mind, but that should be in the basis of your knowledge, or of what patterns you're trying to look at and how you're trying to trade when you're looking at charts. That literally should be the basis. And all you're trying to do is apply statistical likelihoods to each of those three scenarios. That it goes up, that it goes down, or that it goes sideways. That's all you're trying to do in TA. You're not trying to do anything else. If you try to do TA on timing, that's a different frontier. It's kind of silly to try that, but it's nice to whimsically make guesses, I guess, in terms of timing. But in regards to levels and what will happen soon, that's all you're trying to do. So let's jump back into BPRO with the small amount of data points that we have. Since this was a fairly decent sized run, it was 500+%. This was an over five. I mean, this is over 6x. I mean, this is nuts. So 500% is 6x your money. That went 6.5 times your money. That's a sizable run for crypto. Even for crypto, that's pretty good. A lot of coins within the entire bull run that we've had so far, from let's say February to April, a lot of them barely went 600%, and it was a decent sized pump, right? So a lot of coins only did that, and BPRO just did it pulling out of its little bear market here. So with the small amount of data that we have, it's favoring some downside, right? And I've already have drawn in here my 3 target zones. I had drawn in 3 target zones on my BPRO driven, Patreon and Discord community. I let people know the 3 zones that I thought that BPRO could hit. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. Which one did BPRO hit? The 3rd one. So just as it hit the 3rd one going up, it's possible to get the 3rd one going down. It's always possible, right? However, I typically like to see the 1st or the 2nd, or try to place my bets on that in terms of how I'm going to trade. I typically do not try to trade the extremes, which is why I actually sold around this first line. I sold my BPRO at a profit that I had bought around 0.5 something, and that was after a 200% run. So I saw some ridiculous person. I actually know who he is, but he's, I don't know, gone off the walls because he must have lost a lot of money. He said something to the effect of, "Oh, you told us to sell BPRO even before the run started." Actually, I didn't say any of that. I personally sold and let my community know I sold after a 238% run. Not before the run started. I'm really sorry. So yeah, I personally did sell, and I let my community know that I was going to sell at 0.008, and then I did. And that was only, so I did not unstake to do that. Okay, I still have my BPRO stake, but rather the BPRO that I had bought around this red candle here at 0.005, I sold at that point. Hopefully that makes perfect sense, and that's clearly after a darn nice run. That's 3.4x had I bought at the bottom, which I did not. Right? But that's still the run. I did not sell before the run started. I sold after a hell of a run. So from my point, 0.005, 1 or so, up to 0.0088, 71% increase. That's a great trade. Like anything over, I mean, heck, even 15% is a pretty darn good trade, right? So yeah, so this was a huge run, and I just had to call out the person who, whatever, something liquid, like I don't know. I'm not for sure why he persists in trying to make comments so silly on my channel. But anyway, let's get back to it here. So BPRO looks like it could hit one of these 3 targets, okay? If this target of 0.007 seems very unreasonable to you, I mean, it's possible that you're right. Let's say that, BPRO does not go below a penny, and you're sitting here in your boots, in your chair, or wherever you are at work standing up, hopefully not operating machinery. You can say, nope, it's only going to hit a penny. There's no way it's going to hit that first target. It's possible that you're right. What I want to let you know is that altcoin-wise, I've been following altcoins and charts of altcoins for a while. This would probably be the 4th most likely scenario. Do 4th most likely scenarios play out? Absolutely. I mean, close to 10% of the time, maybe 8% of the time, depending on the situation and the asset. However, I'm letting you know this is the 4th most likely scenario. Maybe tied for 3rd. So I would say this box and this box may be tied for 3rd. However, one of these 2 boxes here, a BPRO price hitting it, is way more likely than this. Especially combining the likelihood of BPRO price hitting this box plus the likelihood of BPRO hitting this box, that sum is likely 3 to 8 times greater than the single likelihood of BPRO stopping at this box and bouncing off of it. I want to let you know that very frankly. So it is possible that you're right. However, you might want to take a look. If these levels right here feel impossible to you and you're simply not believing what I'm saying, go to my previous videos. Go to the one with the fireball picture where at 4.3 cents, I told everybody, today's the day you want to sell. It will not go over this, and it could go back down to a penny. All within about a 15-second sentence or 2 sentences. I said all that, and no one believed it could go back to a penny, and hell, it went back to a fifth of a penny, right? So I'm telling you, these levels right here are the most likely levels to which price will fall. However, it doesn't have to go there. So if you're a BPRO fan and you're more on fundamentals, which I lack in that regard, I want to let you know, hey, I'm telling you, these are the most probable levels. Even if it's hard to believe, you might want to keep that as a, hey, this dude on the internet here said these are more probable. I don't believe him, but I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep that as a puzzle piece back here, even though I don't believe it. So even if you can't believe what I'm saying, just keep this information in the back of your mind and discard it if it ever happens. But you're going to have to wait a couple weeks, all right? But do not discard it until BPRO makes a new local high. So until BPRO breaks, 1.8 cents. You should take this, piece of information that I'm giving you, even if you don't believe it, and you need to store it in your head. So that's my suggestion on BPRO. These are my targets. You can just, pause the screen and look at these targets for yourself there. I'm going to move these to the right-hand side of the screen so you can see where these lie. I'm going to stretch it out. And if you're so I'm not going to hold your hand. If you want these levels, you can write them down yourself or pause the screen or do whatever you want. All right, so let's go to POLK. All right, I had a VIP member during a live show. He inspired me to market buy a decent amount of POLK right in the middle of this green box. Recently, as in a couple days ago. So 1, 2, well, it must have been 3 days ago. It might have been right here, actually. I can't remember. It was one of these days, maybe this day. And yeah, it was here. Must have been on August 27th. And I ended up selling it, given that I thought Bitcoin specifically is looking very definite to go down, which if you don't agree with that statement, go ahead and after this video, go watch my Bitcoin video that I'm releasing today as well. Anyway, I was convinced to, PIB convinced me to buy it here. I think I bought it around 45 and I sold at just under 51. So 50, I don't know, 50.5 or something like that. Less than 51 cents. So I got a 12% pop out of that. And I did sell it on the way down. So I saw Bitcoin falling. I sold it about right there, just under 51 cents. Nice 12% increase. We were thinking that POLK was going to make a run on it. However, now that I personally feel, and you don't have to agree with what I'm about to say, I feel that it's much, much more statistically likely that Bitcoin is going to make some type of low here, most likely a higher low, that the pop was not going to happen until Bitcoin has formed that higher low because things are starting to move down more aggressively right now. So I decided to sell up here. Not that big of a gain, but it was, heck, I'll take 12% any day. So I've, on POLK, I did release to my, I think only crackheads and VIPs in an altcoin video or an altcoin update that these are my two targets. If or if not, POLK gives another push up. And they are both within this bat area. So this looks like kind of like a baseball bat, but it's a projection. It depends on, if you get a pop or if you don't get a pop, but they're going to both fall on the same bat just at different times. And with more time, given that you're in a general uptrend right now, more time means up higher because the slope of this is positive, the slope of this is positive, and that's all it means. And I think hitting the middle of the bat is just as likely in both scenarios. So let's make the loose and perhaps very incorrect assumption that POLK does not make another pop. I would say it's a moderately safe idea, a moderately safe assumption. However, a lot of safe assumptions end up being incorrect, right? Hopefully that you've identified a few moments of those in your life, because I've made a lot of safe assumptions that ended up being terribly wrong. But let's make the moderately safe assumption that Polk does not make another pop up, let's say to $1 or whatever, to 83 cents, which are my targets up here. I would say that on a higher low structure, over time, just looking at charts, I feel that I know how, I just get a feel. It's almost like muscle memory where higher lows form relative to the low and what angle of attack that is. And this is just what I drew out of muscle memory. I did not use any statistical methods. I didn't do any of that. I just drew it once, and I drew it again, and then I stretched it out and said, okay, this is about where it is. So this is pure muscle memory, and this is a whimsical yet fairly well-guided guess. Let's name it that. So there is no math behind how I did this. I want to be very clear with that. It's literally muscle memory, right? Just looking at charts all the time. And so if BPRO or if Polk does not make another pop, I bet it goes sideways, comes back up, comes over here, hits the middle of this green line, right in the middle of this bat. That would be my guess, and that's going to be around 34 cents. So that's my current target with a safe assumption. However, let's say that Cardano leads the market up until Wednesday of this week. Bitcoin gets another pop up to maybe not new local highs, let's say 49.7. Polk could easily go up to 84 cents in that scenario in a day, right? Or 2 days. So if that were to happen, I think it would take a while to fall, but still fall in the middle of the bat later in time, therefore is up higher because it's a positive slope. And I think my buyback target would be 43 cents. So you actually just get the mirror image of price are my targets here, 34 and 43 cents, regardless of a pop or not. And that's what we got for Polk. So let's move on to PDEX. Let me take off price again. Still got positive slope on both. Was BPRO still a positive slope? No, it was a negative slope. We already identified that. So, so this might have another pop or two, or it could consolidate, go sideways. So this looks a lot healthier than what BPRO is right now, because this has maintained a positive slope on the daily 10. So let's go to the weekly. Oof. That got pretty hot pretty fast. Okay, so what the weekly is telling me is that price needs to recoup on the weekly 10. And it looks like you finally got your 21st candle. 1, 2, 3. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 19, 20, 21. Yeah, so that's why this yellow is here. So this is the that little yellow dot or line, small line here, is the weekly 21 EMA that finally showed up, which is the price, the average closing price. So here's a close, here's a close, here's a close, here. It's the average of all these areas with some favoritism towards the most recent ones. And you're getting that positive cross. So a lot of times when that happens and price just flies past the red as red crosses yellow, it's going to come back down to check it. A lot of times wick through it. So because I would assume that because it went so hot and hard above the red without respecting the red, so it didn't just hang out here, right? So what I mean by hanging out, if you went to Bitcoin in around February, March 2019, that is hanging around or hanging out around the weekly 10 EMA. So let's take a look at that real fast. And then I'll go back to PDEX. So this is among the most perfect examples possible of hanging out around the weekly 10 EMA, which is so healthy. If you see any asset doing that, that's going to be a good time to pick up some Pokemon cards, not financial advice or financial advice. Or I'm not a financial advisor. So you can see that there was no respect on the 10. So the week is probably the best chart to be looking at on this asset here. Anything on the 4-hour telling you, nope, we're going to go straight up, I think it's lying to you. I think the weekly is the best thing to look at. I would suspect you're going to get a wick past here. and you might ping off this line on one of the deepest red day. You're probably going to hit that line at $14.16. So I would say a quick ping off here, but I would say the weekly close, so around Sunday, it might ping off here around a Thursday or a Wednesday or a Tuesday, something like that. And by Sunday, price should, I would guess, would be closer to this red line. So that's my specific guess with POLK, or with PDEX, sorry. I would try to pick it up around $14.10, 11 cents. So this is probably the chart on PDEX. All right, and let's go back to BPRO one more time. Go to the Bitcoin chart to see if we're seeing anything a little bit different there. So I still maintain, regardless of what Bitcoin price does, I bet BPRO hits that line one more time. I wouldn't bet so strongly on that, but if I had to choose one thing, I would choose that. If I had to make a second choice, I would say that line right there. Actually, you know what? That might be my first choice. I take that back. Nope, I do take that back. This would be my first choice. I don't think BPRO is going to hit that. Okay, so what this means is that, so this is versus Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin drops, right, and BPRO hits this line, which means it's going down versus Bitcoin, that means BPRO is falling more than Bitcoin, right? So this isn't like the most bullish thing ever. You might be looking at this saying, hey, Tim wasn't bullish enough. Well, this is still, you know, short-term pretty bearish. So let me summarize that one more time. If BPRO hits this line and bounces off of it, right, which this could take 6, 7, 8 days to do, that means BPRO is going down versus Bitcoin, which means if Bitcoin goes down 15%, then BPRO versus the dollar is going down more than 15%. So it doesn't mean you're going to fly to the moon. However, it is a little bit more bullish of a scenario. So if I were trying to trade BPRO versus the dollar, I would definitely be looking at the Bitcoin chart. And I would have these two lines on it, because what you can do versus Bitcoin is you can trade BPRO versus the dollar, especially if you want to sell it in a potentially down market. That you anticipate could go down here shortly. But even though you want to trade versus BPRO versus the dollar, you can make those choices in terms of market buying and market selling. So selling now, buying now, you can make those choices driven off of the BTC chart. So honestly, I'm glad I followed up with this, because I would actually prefer to trade BPRO versus Bitcoin. This chart is so much clearer, folks. I don't know. This is a lot clearer. However, you have two wildly different options, though, and these options, if Bitcoin volatility gets high, these differences are going to be pretty big. So even though they look close, that it could have pretty huge results. I want to let you know that this is not some fine-tuned TA. I have two different you know, most likely scenarios versus Bitcoin, and they can be drastically different depending on what Bitcoin does. If Bitcoin stays flat, okay, well, these two are going to be very, very similar. Regardless of which one plays out on the US dollar chart, it'll be very similar, right? So, however, if Bitcoin gets volatile, these could be extremely different. So just a heads up on how to use the Bitcoin chart. It can get kind of confusing, and I wanted to warn you of that. This might look like a close range, but it only depends. It specifically depends on if Bitcoin is volatile or pretty flat. So that's what I got for you here. If you liked what you saw here today, seriously, go check out the links down below. I let you know what the community is all about, different tiers, all that good stuff. And go ahead and hit subscribe. Let me know if you want to be a Cryptilian or a crypto crackhead. Those are our gender neutral crypto pronouns that we use within the community. If you're returning, go ahead and hit thumbs up. And for me, help the algo and leave me a comment, even if it is just "you suck, LOL," and we'll see you next time.